Are you a small business owner struggling to nail down your brand voice? Have you hired copywriters only to discover they couldn't capture your messaging? If that sounds like you, then you need to download my free resource, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Once you complete these simple steps, you will have a solid foundation for producing your business copy, whether you decide to write your own content or outsource it to a professional, like, say, me. As an added bonus, you'll be automatically subscribed to my email list, where you can learn more about my writing services and receive weekly updates about my podcast, Emotional Abuse is Real. Head over to the link in the show notes to grab Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps today. Trigger warning, this podcast episode features discussions of emotional abuse and predatory behavior in multi-level marketing companies. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Emotional Abuse is Real. I'm your host, Serene Leeds. I'm a professional writer and storyteller, and I'm so glad you're here. On today's episode, I'm continuing my series on emotional abuse in multi-level marketing companies with my guest, Rachel Goldberg. Rachel is a licensed marriage and family therapist based in the Los Angeles area, and as you'll hear throughout our conversation, she has a lot of experience working with women, especially new moms, who have been lured in by MLMs. Rachel offers a clinical perspective from, well, all sides of the MLM pyramid, as she's worked with clients who have both, quote, failed and, quote, succeeded in their MLM journeys. But as always, before we get into the episode, I have a few quick announcements. Please make sure you're following me on Instagram at Serene Leeds Writes. That's SareneLeedsWrites. And that you're subscribed to this podcast on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Also, don't forget to support Emotional Abuse is Real by leaving a 5-star rating and by writing a review over on Apple Podcasts. If you're interested in sharing your emotional abuse experience on this podcast, whether it's for my series on MLMs or you'd like to talk about trauma from a personal relationship, please either DM me on Instagram, email me at hello@sereneleadswrites.com, or fill out my quick and simple application form. I've left links to my Instagram, email, the show's application form, and my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps, in the show notes. Last thing before we get into my chat with Rachel Goldberg. If any of you listening know someone in an MLM, I highly recommend listening to this episode in its entirety, because Rachel provides some critical tips for how you can best support your friends and loved ones without putting them on the defensive. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Rachel Goldberg. To start, for those clients who have you've worked with, who have had a negative experience with MLMs, what exactly were those people experiencing, and how were you able to help them?
Yeah. So I guess I should mention that part of my practice is working with new parents, postpartum women. And so I think the people that I've worked with that have been part of these is new mothers typically. And so I think that kind of blends into, where I'm going to go with it. So some of the ones that have had bad experiences is they come in with this idea of, I'm going to be saved in a way. New motherhood is so challenging and difficult and lonely, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're kind of easy targets to go for, because here is this not only, way to make some money on the side while you're raising your child, but you're going to feel so much less lonely. And so there's this idea that you're going to buy into this program. And also, by the way, it comes with all these health benefits. A lot of them are focused on health or some kind of drink or skincare. So that's kind of how I've had clients get into it. And, they will even up front, for ones that I was working with even before they started, they will even say something to the effect of, I know that these things don't always work out. And, so it's not even as if they're completely naive to it. They're on top of it. I talked to my husband about it. He's kind of not really feeling it. But I feel like I have it in me to be able to do this. And, I really think it will like help me create community. And, if it doesn't work out, then okay, then maybe I just like lost a little bit of money and it's not a big deal. And so that's kind of how, it goes. And it just seems very innocent. And then for some, actually, it can end up being. They could just kind of like see what it is about for a month or two and then just say, okay, this isn't for me. And okay, they maybe, are in a couple hundred or whatever. And they're like, no big deal. But then for some, it becomes this whole other thing. It becomes this life form in a way where, there is some benefit to them in that they do feel camaraderie, right? It might not be real camaraderie, but they feel this like, constant attention from especially the people, that are above them that are trying to get them to like continue with the program. There's a lot of motivation and encouragement and you're doing great. And, who doesn't want to hear they're doing great, especially when you are a tired mom and you're not working, let's say, and you just feel like, who am I anymore? Like, where am I getting my confidence from? And then here you have these cheerleaders right behind you, telling you you're doing amazing. And I think that's kind of how it starts to grow for people.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of people, then what ends up happening, even when they stay in it, like, for a while and they do okay, which I've only had a couple, most of them end up, leaving and then actually having to make like amends with some of their friends, who are avoiding them, and family. But then there are people who have done decent. I wouldn't say like they're raking in the dough over here, but they're doing okay. But there's this whole element, it takes over their life. If they sat down with a spreadsheet and put down how many hours they are putting into this, the amount of payout they're getting, it's probably like $3 an hour. It is nothing. It is, pennies. And it's on their mind 24/7. I need to do better. I need to do better. I need to keep going. I need to get to that next level. They want the accolades, right? And for someone who's a type A personality, who is a go-getter, who now doesn't feel they have as much purpose, this gives them purpose.
Yeah. I mean, in the research I've done, that's what I've learned. And that's what makes this entire niche so fascinating to me. And thank you for saying that you work a lot with new mothers and postpartum mothers because, they, like you said, they are the easy targets because they're so lonely and they are desperate for community. And in the research I've done, so many of these companies appeal to the suburban stay-at-home mother. And it really, and I've also learned that the community element is so strong that, like you said, these women mainly are willing to allow these companies to consume their lives. So what are the negative effects of that you've seen in your practice?
People become obsessed, right?
Yeah.
They lose connection with so many of the people that are really supportive in their life, their family, their friends. They lose a lot of connection. It turns into just a game of hustle.
Yeah.
In the daily grind of it, they will say things to the effect of, but I'm enjoying it. Like I love this hustle. Like I'm getting, I'm getting somewhere. Like I feel like I'm almost at the next level, right? And so there's some element of they're needed and they're feeling good and they're feeling accomplished. And then, but it takes over their life to the point where they stop showing up for their family. They stop being, the mother that they had always wanted to be. It completely transforms them into a person that people want to walk away from sometimes. They go to the playground or they go to, the school for pickup and it's like, oh, let's avoid her, because like she's just going to talk about her product and how amazing it is. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
I think it becomes isolating. It's interesting because what happens is they feel a community, right? Because they now have a new community and it's a great community on some level, in that they have these trips and they have like, everyone is on the same page, right? They're all
Yeah.
like, yeah, we got to do the next thing, and we're so motivated, and we got to hire, and you're doing great, and we got to work harder. And so that part is like, there's this like something above them that they're all shooting for, right? There's this like
Yeah.
bigger picture that they are all part of this group together, you know?
Yeah.
And then while that's happening, they're losing out on the old connections they have.
Yeah.
But it's hard to see that happening because you're so busy with all the other stuff. So it's only
Exactly.
when sometimes you take a step back or something happens that you're like, wait a minute, who am I anymore? Who are my friends? What happened?
Yeah. So I know that you mentioned that you've also seen how there are detriments to being super successful in an MLM. That's something that equally fascinates me. And it just goes to show how important it is to talk about this topic, because even if you are one of those rare people who can say, yes, no, I got everything out of what this company promised me. Maybe you didn't get it, but I did, but they're still not happy. So what have you seen in clients who have been quote unquote successful?
Successful. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple examples. So
Okay.
there's this one example where someone who had like maybe minor anxiety prior to seeing me and maybe their whole life
Yeah.
is now an extremely anxious person, right? Their phone goes off and they need to answer it now. There is no finish changing the diaper or putting
right.
on my baby's clothes. Like, I have to answer this now because this could be, my next sale, or my next, this could be someone who's working under me that I have to like really respond to right now. There's a sense of urgency all the time. There's a lot of anxiety because it's an ebb and flow business where sometimes it does really well. During COVID in particular, I think it was doing well
Yeah.
for my clients that were involved. And, then COVID kind of slowed down. People went back to their normal lives. They weren't just at home anymore. And now all of a sudden, they're scrambling to try to find more people, and also once you've kind of got your sister involved and your cousin involved and your mom involved, and then they're kind of not interested anymore. Now you got to
Yeah.
keep finding new avenues to find people. And so it's this constant game
Exactly.
of being on social media and posting and talking about how great the products are. And then, monitoring the people that are under you. And it becomes so involved, the anxiety to keep up, to do as good as you did last month and the month before is an enormous pressure on them.
Yeah.
And if you say, what would it be like if you leave? There's this like sunk fallacy.
Yeah.
I put so much time into this. I put years into this. Like, look how many connections I have. I have people under me. What could I do? I can't just leave and say, okay, anyone who's under me, like, bye. I don't believe in this anymore. I'm not into it anymore. Like, I need to continue because I have this goal of getting that trip. And what would it say if I just stopped now? Someone tell me that they wish that something would happen to them medically so that they have it,
Oh my
because
goodness.
they just
Yeah.
can't imagine saying I give up. To them,
That
that is insane.
that's like a version of postpartum depression. When people have those kinds, because I just did an article about postpartum depression,
Yeah.
and those horrifying thoughts that come into your head where, yeah, I mean, that does not surprise me, because I've always thought about the structure. The business model is predatory, and it's going to end up hurting people no matter what. And it's funny that you said COVID-19, because this is actually when I really started learning about MLMs, because surprise, surprise, people were trying to recruit me. And I was like, huh? And then there was one instance where I wasn't quite sure how it worked. And I was like, oh, these essential oils look like fun. Okay, how do I buy them? And then I started researching the company. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want to spend all this money just because I wanted like 2 bottles of oil. So yeah, I've been like basically down a rabbit hole for the past 4 years on this topic. So as a clinician, how do you help clients who come to you who are either, trying to reconcile where they are with MLMs or if they're trying to get out?
Yeah. They really have to be ready to leave, because if I say, I think this is not right for you, it's look how much, pain it's causing your friends and your family and yourself, and they're not ready to hear that, they might leave, and that's not the goal. I don't want them to leave therapy. They're struggling. So I try to just, when I can see the struggle, just gently make them aware, and then to kind of help them process what the fear is of leaving. What is that fear? What's happening for you? The thought of leaving, what do you think is going to happen? And there is an incredible amount of fear. It's who they've been for a while, their identity. It's now having to probably go back and mend relationships and admit that all the stuff that they had been trying to sell, is maybe not as great as they thought it was going to be, or it just wasn't. It's kind of like saying, hey, I know I told you this was so amazing and that you should jump on board, and now I left. What?
Yeah.
It becomes like you're, wrong or whatever. Like
right.
Nobody wants to admit that.
Of course not. Right.
There's a lot of that happens, and so I think really a lot of it is people genuinely do want to leave after they realize how entailed it is, and they just have this incredible fear, and also ego.
Yeah.
There's ego involved. There's pride involved.
Have you ever considered how you're choosing to communicate and what the quality of that communication does? Hi, I'm Abby, and I invite you to join me for the third season of my podcast, Stories Lived, Stories Told, where each week I am joined by a different conversation partner, and together we'll use communication as a lens to explore a topic they're passionate about. And whether you are familiar with a given topic or not, the hope is that by centering communication, we can reveal new ways of seeing and being. So join me for Stories Lived, Stories Told with new episodes every Monday, and learn to create better social worlds through communication.
So I know you've talked about already, like some of the things that really makes these companies so alluring, the sense of community and feeling like you have all these brand new best friends cheering you on. Is there anything else that you've observed that you think helps to make these companies still so alluring? Because the reason why I love to talk about this subject is because there is so much hard evidence available that proves that chances are you're not going to win the trip, get the car, make that money. But yet it has not stopped people from joining these companies.
Well, one of the tactics is they have these like conferences and whatnot.
Yeah.
And when they do them, it's kind of like this re-enlivened reminder that you can achieve it. Like, maybe they didn't get it last month, then the month after. But then they go to this conference and it's just a bunch of motivational speakers telling you everything you want to hear, like how amazing their life is. And, you just have to push a little bit harder. You're almost there, and it keeps people, strong along. And also, some will say something like, I know that I don't spend as much time with my family and my kids, but you know what? I'm showing them what really good work ethic looks like, right? There's this kind of denial, and it's sad to watch. There's a denial that like I'm, proving something to them and showing them how I can be this person, knowing they also feel guilt, right? But they're trying to deny that part of themselves. I once had a client who brought her husband in because her husband was just so upset with all of this and was like, can we go together? And that was a very actually helpful session, and I think helped also her, because I think in that safe space he got to really be honest without her getting super defensive right away, and just say, I miss my wife. I miss not having to take care of the kids and take them to the games every weekend by myself because you are at a conference or on a call, or I miss having you come with me places and my friends actually want to engage with us instead of run from us because they're afraid of what you're going to bring up, And here is another way that you had asked me how they sell.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I have an example of one. I won't say which one it is, but
fine.
when you start it, you do like a coffee alcohol cleanse, like don't do coffee and alcohol for a while, right?
Yeah.
And then you do these other things instead, these like drinks or something. And oh my gosh, I have so much energy. I feel so much better. My life is so much improved.
Yeah.
And you used to drink wine 5 nights a week and had coffee, and I wonder how that might affect your body, but they're not able to see that yet. They're not able to see the changes they actually made, which is almost gaslighting themselves. You made these changes. You started getting up and working out. You started, not, drinking less caffeine. You cut out alcohol. Like, good for you. That's amazing. But now you're ascribing all these great benefits to this powder. And it's sad.
It is sad because that's when I think a lot of people start using the word cult. Like I'm not going to get into that now, but I hear that term thrown around a lot because there's this devotion, and also in some of the research that I've done, there are a lot of like religious church-like elements to how they lure these people in, which all goes back to the community. But like you said, that's such a shame because it's like, no, they are the ones who made those lifestyle changes. A powder isn't going to change anything.
Right.
Oh man. So what would you say are some common red flags that people should look for, whether like it's an MLM or just, any toxic group, whether it's health or wellness. Yeah.
I think if there is this pay up front in any form, that's a red flag.
That's what killed it for me.
Right. Here you are saying you're going to like make all this money, but first you have to pay me. Now I get it if it's like a training because like, hey, look, I went to get my license as a therapist, right? So like I had to pay for school and training.
Right.
That's different than saying, buy this product and then you'll see how it's amazing. And then you'll see other people want it. And then guess what? You're going to make all this money, So there's the red flag already. Also, if they are constantly describing all the amazing benefits that come in the form of cars, trips, another red flag.
Yeah.
If there are conferences where you go to see the new products and you have to pay for your room and board, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Every phone call you have with someone, that is on your team, always about how you can do better. Ask yourself, is that really the kind of friend you want in your life? And what would happen if you stop selling? Are they still going to be in your life? Are they still going to cheerlead you?
Yeah.
Are they still going to tell you how hard motherhood is and how they get it?
Yeah.
Or are they going to be, somewhere else doing that with someone else?
Yeah, so, exactly. Yeah. Because I've seen that, people have, if someone leaves, then they get shunned.
Yeah. Great. The community's gone. Why, you're not helping me anymore. And even if it's, not in like a maladaptive, mean-spirited way, of like, oh, get out of my life, you suck. It could even just be more about, I don't have time for you anymore. I spent a lot of time invested in you because you were making me money. And I now need to invest that time in somebody else.
Exactly. And so because I don't want people to be dissuaded by trying to find a good community, what are some green flags for a healthy community? And, for anybody, I mean, it could be new moms, women, stay-at-home moms, women, anyone.
It's maybe getting a service for the money you're putting in. So, hey, come join this Mommy and Me class where, there is community and you're going to get like a music class and whatnot, and it's, not a buy-in where we're going to take money out every single month necessarily, or you have an option to cancel, that's a great place to find community. If it doesn't involve how something made their life incredibly better, like this made my skin glow in a way that you could never, would never get if you went to the dermatologist. There's a little bit of a red flag. So if it's not that, if it's, hey, look, come see my facialist, she's great. There's a pressure that comes with the other one, right? There's a pressure. There's this, even for me, when I would first see one client who was involved, I felt even like I didn't even want to be around this client because I felt like she was selling me, and it was just like how amazing it was. The product was so good and she's bringing samples in, and I, denied the samples. I said, no, thank you for offering those, I'm not going to accept them. And, we talked about that, right?
Good. Yeah.
But I think in some ways that actually helped her to see how I was a little bit, put off. And I let her know that after a while. I said, sometimes I get a little anxious when you come in because I'm not sure how you're going to come at me with these products. Yeah. And I think that was very eye-opening for her because I think most people won't say that to somebody, right? Most people are not going to, they're just going to avoid you, right? So like if you're at that mommy and me group and you just keep bringing your samples and handing them over and asking about them and calling them, they're just going to start avoiding you as opposed to saying, I'm never going to buy into this. Please leave me alone. Because that's hurtful. And, people don't want to do that. So they just avoid you. And so the person who's doing the selling isn't necessarily sure they're being avoided. They're not, there's no proof really. Like she hasn't talked to me as much, but maybe she's busy, there's no like real proof. So I think me saying that to somebody actually, that I feel a little anxious sometimes, I think that actually really helped her because she was taken aback by, oh, this is the effect I have on people in my life.
I'm so glad that you did that. I mean, well, first of all, that was in a professional setting. I mean, she should, because I was going to ask you, I was like, oh my God, is she trying to sell to you in session? Wow. But that's how pervasive it is. Yeah. So
everyone they see is seen as a potential.
Exactly.
Everyone.
Exactly.
And that's why also they're always anxious and ruminating, right? Because you go to the grocery store, who can possibly be under me? It's every person is an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that that's how they're trained or taught. I'm sure that the person in their upline, that's what they're instructing them to do. So on the subject of the people who, for lack of a better term, are ultimately alienated by the constant selling and the constant talking about the product. Do you have any advice for those friends and loved ones who they can see that that person is just enmeshed in this toxic community and it's hurting their relationship? And because we know that so many bridges end up getting burned between people who are in MLMs and who aren't. So yeah, my question is what would you say to those friends and loved ones who are kind of like on the outside looking in? Yeah.
So I think a lot of people will approach it, unfortunately, with a very aggressive tone to the person who's in MLM, right? And so then the person in it is, oh, they don't get it, or well, F them,
Right.
They will come at it as like, just leave me alone with that stuff. Like, especially if it's a family member, like, like leave me alone with that stuff. I'm not doing that anymore. Or, husband just being mad, like you spend so much time on your phone. Like, this is ridiculous. I think it needs to be seen as this person almost has an addiction, right?
Yeah.
And we need to approach this in a little bit of a softer way and kind of try to understand how they're, got sucked into this and also why they're staying, right? Mm-hmm. What is their reason? Be curious, do they feel like we need the money? Is it because they feel that they have now wasted some of our finances and they have to make it up? Is it pride? What is it? The community that they think they have? What is it? So be curious about that, and then kind of approach it. So if you're close to this person, like it is a significant other, let's say, you can say one day, hey, I know that I've gotten hard on you before about this, and I know that I complain a lot, and I really do want to support you, but also I do feel this is affecting our relationship and our family life. And is there something we can possibly do to talk about this in a calm way? Maybe we can see a therapist. Maybe we can, one day pick a time where we just like have no kids around and we have no phones around and we just like really have an honest conversation with each other about it, and to try not to blame, right? Look what you've done to our family. Right. So right away, this person's now defensive and no, I'm going to show you how great this is. Right. But come from a place of curiosity too. What are you getting from this? Like, maybe I can help recreate that with you. You know, if it's community, maybe we can figure out a way to spend more time with friends, or, you know, go on trips or whatever, if that's what the incentive is. Right. So coming from that angle with friends, you know, if it's a good friend of yours and you're alienating, you know, yourself from them, you know, it would be maybe helpful for you to just say, I want you to know that I miss our friendship and I want to be around you more. But even though we've had this discussion and you already told me you're never going to sell to me, and you don't, you've respected that boundary, I still always hear about it. You know, I can hear about the person who's on your team who's not doing good and how you're upset about it. And I hear about, you know, all the things that happen, you know, where you're stressed or where you're feeling good, or I'm listening to all this and it makes me sad because this isn't who you are and who you always were.
Yeah.
And, you know, just having that honest conversation, I think, can soften someone to see the other side. Whereas when you come at them with this, you know, aggressiveness and you're ruining things and stuff, they're not soft anymore. Now they're on the defense.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful advice. And I mean, I wanted to make sure that I ask that question because it's not just the person in the MLM who's affected. It is their friends and loved ones. And because, right. And also because I know, because I have such strong feelings about them, you know, I'm just like, oh my God, how could these people just be like this? And I know, as with anything, it's never that simple.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that outlook.
Yeah, I want to see that too. Like, you know, a lot of people think people who fall into these are like people.
Yeah.
You know, they're not necessarily. They're not. You know, they were in a very, very vulnerable time when they were approached.
Exactly.
And, you know, so they saw this opportunity. And then once in, they kind of got trapped, you know, in this idea. And then there's this, again, fear of leaving, because what does that say about them? Are they a quitter?
Exactly.
You know, did they fail? Are they right? They must have failed. You know,
right? Exactly. That drives me crazy because it's like, just from the business model alone, no, they didn't fail. Right. They didn't fail at all. And also the way because I've seen it firsthand, the recruitment tactics, they work. I mean, who doesn't want to get a DM from a random person saying, oh my God, your hair's gorgeous, you know? And 100%. I was like, well,
just, you know,
I love hearing that.
They do it in like for the ones that I knew, they did it in like these mommy meetings. Like, oh my gosh, isn't parenting so hard? Like, oh, let's get together and do a play date or go for a walk with the stroller. And it seems so innocent. And I finally have a friend, and they don't bring it up necessarily right away. And then they say, I've only been using this product. My face is like really helped. And that, you know, it is predatory. You know, it is manipulative and predatory. Yeah. And then on top of that, you know, what happens too is, for some of these women, they go through like an emotional roller coaster that becomes addictive, right? So some days are really good days and you're always seeking that high, right? So you're looking for the next big high where you are going to get praise and, oh my God, I can't believe you did this, and your numbers are up, right? Yeah. And so then when they fall, right, when the weeks aren't as good or it's slow, they know if they could just make that one next one, they're going to get to that high again, right? And some even have this idea that once I get to this level, then I think I'm going to, like, you know, be fine. I'm going to throw in the towel. Right. But that then doesn't happen. The goalpost moves.
I was just about to say, I was like, the goalpost was going to move. Yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your insights today. How can my listeners connect with you?
Website is probably the easiest, which is RachelGoldbergTherapy.com. And you can see my blog posts, and I have a media link, and you can reach out to me by email, and that would be the best. And I just want to say thanks for having me and for bringing this topic up. I think it's very important.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we connected. And yeah, I've been trying to talk about this topic for a while now, but I finally found the right outlet to do so. So thank you again for all of your insights. And Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Rachel Goldberg on Emotional Abuse is Real. If you would like to connect with Rachel, I've left the link to her website in the show notes. If you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out via email at hello@sereneleadsrights.com, through Instagram @sereneleadsrights, or fill out my guest application form. Please note that this podcast should not be used as a substitute for professional mental health services. If you are a victim of emotional abuse and need help, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988. Or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START, START, to 88788. Once again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and go grab my free download, Discover Your Brand Voice in 3 Easy Steps. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.